NASA's worst nightmare came true this morning when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded a minute and a half barely after takeoff. It appears that no lives were saved, that all 7 crew members on board died, including school teacher Krista McAuliffe. Now, after 4 delays over seemingly minor technical problems, the shuttle blasted off this morning after an earlier delay due to icy conditions. We'll show you now some tape of that takeoff when things seem to be going according to schedule.
We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll, Challenger. Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading downrange.
Well, again, everything seems to be going well at this point. Liftoff is going according to schedule. But then when NASA instructed the crew to go to full throttle power at the point of solid rocket booster separation, something seemed to go wrong. Coming up here in just a moment, you'll hear the NASA official speaking again.
65%, 3 engines running normally, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles. Downrange distance 3 nautical miles.
Okay, here it comes. 1 minute, 12 seconds into the launch. Watch.
Engines throttling up. 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Challenger, go at throttle up. There.
Okay, again, anyone watching those tapes seems to have little doubt that all of the 7 crew members died on board that flight, NASA's first in-flight disaster and the first apparent deaths since the tragedy aboard the Apollo 1 in 1967 when 3 astronauts burned to death during a launch test on the ground. Now, search and rescue teams are just now beginning to get into the water. They were forced to stay put because debris was still falling from the sky nearly an hour after the craft blew up. There has been no word on the survivors. NASA lost immediate radio contact with the craft, and NASA says, quote, "It doesn't look like any lives were saved." That word was relayed to New Mexico Congressman Manuel Lujan, who at the time of the explosion was meeting with NASA officials in Washington. Now, the Challenger launch had been plagued with many problems. Many delays were forced yesterday because of trouble with the hatch door, and then the weather. This morning, apparently problems topped off with an extension to check conditions on the launch pad. 2-foot-long icicles had been formed on the craft. Jocelyn Lane, of course, is standing by live at NASA. Jocelyn, has NASA at this point given any indication what could have caused that craft to explode?
None at all, Ginger. NASA still has not released any official statement on the shuttle explosion, except that no abnormalities were noted during the launch. NASA. Ginger?
Jocelyn, I assume that everything is rather chaotic and confused down at NASA right now, but have officials given any kind of indication when they plan on making an official statement on what happened?
No, they haven't. We asked them about every 10 minutes. As you can imagine, we're very anxious. It did look like they might be setting up for a press conference about 10 minutes ago in the building behind me, but we haven't yet had a chance to confirm that. We're hoping for something this afternoon, but earlier today the NASA official told me that they might not even have a press conference until tomorrow. We're just going to have to wait and see. Okay, Jocelyn, thank you very much, and we'll be checking back in with you. As Jocelyn just mentioned, there were 7 crew members aboard the Challenger. The spacecraft commander was 46-year-old Francis Dick Scobie. He became an astronaut in 1978 and was pilot of the shuttle mission in 1984 that retrieved and repaired the Solar Max satellite. 40-year-old Michael J. Smith was the spacecraft pilot, a Navy commander. He became an astronaut in 1980. He was a Vietnam veteran and won the Navy Distinguished Flying Cross. Judith Resnick was a mission specialist with previous experience. She was aboard a shuttle flight that deployed 3 satellites. The 36-year-old Resnick had a PhD in electrical engineering. Ronald McNair was also a mission specialist. He joined the astronaut program in 1978 and had previously flown aboard the Challenger. He was 35 years old. 39-year-old Ellison S. Onizuka was a mission specialist and joined NASA in 1978, a native of Hawaii.
Gregory Jarvis, a payload specialist, selected for the program in 1984, 41 years old. And of course, the nation had focused all of its attention on Krista McAuliffe on this flight, the first participant in NASA's Citizen in Space program, the 37-year-old school teacher from New Hampshire. She had taught English and American history since 1970. She was selected as, of course, the primary candidate for the Teacher in Space program in July of last year. Well, in Washington, President Reagan has not yet made an official statement regarding the shuttle explosion. However, White House spokesman Larry Speaks says that President Reagan watched in what he called almost stunned silence as he viewed tapes of that explosion. On Capitol Hill, the House of Representatives called for an immediate recess after saying a prayer. Now, hundreds of people were on hand for today's launch at Cape Canaveral, many watching nearby as the shuttle took off. Among those on the ground were the parents and students of teacher Krista McAuliffe. You can see here Edward and Grace Corrigan were at the VIP viewing site just 3 miles from the launch pad. The camera will pan up to them in just a moment. Like other visitors, they were frustrated by those delays. Here they seem to realize that something had gone wrong. Obviously, the tragedy immediately etched in their faces. Also, the students and teachers that worked with Krista McAuliffe, students at her Concord High School, were yelling and cheering when suddenly a teacher just signaled them to be quiet. Something had gone wrong. It became clear that there was an explosion. The students, of course, fell immediately silent. A hushed chill fell over the viewing stands. And the McAuliffes and Krista McAuliffe's parents were shielded from spectators as they were immediately taken away from that viewing site. Well, again, the most notable thing about this Challenger flight was the participation of Krista McAuliffe. She had captured rather kind of the nation's attention as the first citizen in space. The ground crew today had given her an apple as she prepared to launch off into space, 37 years old. Tony Burden now traces her selection to be America's first teacher in space.
NASA had long wanted to...
The kids.
Again, it appears there were no survivors, that all 7 crew members on board the Space Shuttle Challenger died this morning when 1 minute and 12 seconds into takeoff, the Challenger exploded. It seemed to explode at the point where NASA instructed the crew to go to full throttle power. That, of course, is the point of solid rocket booster separation. Something obviously went wrong. The spacecraft exploded. Search and rescue teams, as we said moments ago, are just now beginning to get into the water. They, of course, were held back because the debris was still falling from the sky more than an hour after the craft blew up. There has been no word on the survivors, but NASA says it doesn't look as if any lives were saved. We're going to rejoin live coverage in progress. Our crews will stay at NASA during the day. We will keep you updated as this situation unfolds. Of course, there are more questions than there are answers at this point, but keep it here on 26. We're on top of it as anyone can be at this point. And again, we will keep you informed as to any new developments as to why the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 1.5 minutes after takeoff this morning.